20 years ago, I remember being 9 when I went to the theater to see, not their best, but arguably Blue Sky's most original film they ever made, Robots. God, these videos make me feel so old. In a world where only robots exist, and there are somehow no humans that are basically God that created these inventions. It's the only real plot hole I have with the world building in this. Rodney Copperbottom, played by Ewan McGregor, is a young, inspiring inventor who travels to Robot City so he can meet and work with his idol, a philanthropist named Mr. Bigweld, played by Mel Brooks. But when he finds a mother and son duo played by Jim Broadbent and Kinnear, yeah, more on that later, have taken over his corporation, raising the prices of the only parts keeping everyone alive and well, he teams up with a gang of misfits led by Robin Williams to help fix lower-class robots, find Bigweld, and hopefully set things right in Robot City. Now, even though there's technically a plot and a couple characters worth rooting for, the star of this movie is the world of Robot City. One of the producers of this is actually William Joyce, the author of George Shrinks and Roly Poly Oly, who also serves as the production designer. And if you've read the books or watched the cartoons like I did as a kid, you know it makes perfect sense. It has all of his storytelling tropes, from the setting being a 1950s aesthetic mixed with retro-futuristic technology, Rube Goldberg-style contraptions that are integral to everyone's lives, and the soundtrack being more classic jazz than modern pop. And that's what's so unique about robots, the mechanisms of Robot City, from transportation, people, how every device is sentient to some capacity, leads to so many imaginative, original set pieces, especially Crosstown Express. The speed of the animation, the calculation of every device being on display, and just how massive everything is in scope, in my opinion, makes this one of the best animated sequences ever put to film, just based on an excitement and creativity level. And it also helps that the animation on everyone and everything, from the designs, textures, and even light reflecting off of everyone's, not skin, but metal, you know what I mean, still looks brand new 20 years later. And because each character has different designs and capabilities over one another, it leads to a lot of imaginative, clever sight gags where the timing, delivery, and scenarios are so ridiculous, ranging from Rodney being chased by a series of magnetized objects, or the climax where one character turns into a pro wrestler. This movie kind of becomes a Looney Tunes cartoon, but in a good way. The comedy is even funnier than I remember as a kid, now that I'm old enough to understand the more adult moments in this. Oh, honey, I'm sorry, you missed the delivery. But that's okay. Making the baby's the best part. I'm kind of into the Brazilian wax. Ew. Or the commentary this movie has about the healthcare system. Rodney can only fix those with health insurance. Oh, right, I forgot. Everybody come on in. And a lot of background jokes I'm kind of kicking myself for not noticing until now. I even have to admit, Aunt Fanny actually made me laugh at a fart joke, mainly because it was so potent that a streetlight outside the house collapsed because it couldn't breathe, and then cut to the very next scene, there's an outline of him where he died. I never knew how to feel about that as a kid. Now, as cool as the world building is, you still need characters and a main dilemma in order to stay fully invested, and I will say this, Ewan McGregor takes what's on paper a pretty cheesy character, and not gonna lie, sometimes he still comes across that way, but still makes Rodney feel like a genuine person. As I was writing my notes, I had trouble understanding why he would be friends with Fender in the first place after he tried to rob Rodney, let alone help the others at first, but when I look back on the opening 10 minutes where, as robots get older and need different parts, he gets literal hand-me-downs. Make what you will of those. And without even seeing him walk around in them being teased by others, you can already sense the struggle he's gone through, but is still grateful. Especially as an adult, noticing that as his dad grows older, without any hand-me-downs of his own, he's becoming more rusty, so to speak. So because he's already lived with less than spare parts and has watched someone grow without them, it makes sense why he's more compassionate than everyone else and more forgiving to people less fortunate because they remind him of someone important. And his motivation in basically running his own free clinic as he fixes lower class robots, since the cool thing about inventors in this is that they're kind of doctors and surgeons half the time, and again, leads to a lot of clever sight gags. And does everything to find Bigweld. No matter how many times the villains kick him to the curb, he gets back up and keeps looking because he knows that if he doesn't, no one else will. He's an ideal version of a perseverant role model that you just don't get in kids' movies these days. And since he never gets enough credit for this, I think Stanley Tucci is one of the best animated dads in this, just because, like any dad, he tries so hard not to dwell on his own problems in order to raise his son up and give him the better life that he never had. He's only in it for a few scenes, but again, Tucci's sincerity in the voice work makes him sound like a real dad. Robin Williams is in this just to be Robin Williams, and he does by no means anything you haven't already seen from him, or heard in that matter. Whether it's Aladdin, Ferngully, or even Happy Feet, you've heard these exact voices before done for the exact same reasons. You know what was in the script versus what he improvised, and he's loud and zany just for the hell of it, but it's fucking Robin Williams. Dude was the embodiment of a live-action cartoon. His timing and delivery makes the most random shit at worst tolerable, and at best hilarious when it has absolutely no right to be. I don't care how much they paid Ricola, it's worth it. And I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but Wonderbot never got on my nerves. I think he was the exact example of how to do a cutesy side character, where he's in it long enough without overstaying his welcome. He hits just the right amount of adorable without being too obnoxious or hogging the screen time. He actually contributes to the plot in helping search for Bigweld or escape from the villains. And he even has a bit of a mean streak where he overcomes this arc of being shy and insecure to having a sword fight with the villain and kind of sort of murdering her. I never knew how to feel about that as a kid. Like, it's great that he became a braver person over the course of the movie, but you fucking murdered somebody. Like, Rodney didn't invent you for that. Still a ton of fun to watch, though. Which is more than I can say for a lot of sidekicks in kids' movies. Now, as much as I smiled ear to ear rewatching this, there were a ton of times where a scene or conversation would just end and move on to the next, and I sat there and went, really, that's it? Every time I paused in order to get a drink or go to the bathroom, and I saw how much time was left, I just sat there and went, wow, this is going by a lot quicker than I remember. I dare say too quick. This movie's only an hour and 20 if you don't count the end credits, and honestly, I think if this was an hour 40, even an hour 50, I think you could have spent a lot more time developing the side characters who help Rodney over the course of his journey, because his ragtag team of sidekicks, the Rusties, or at least they call themselves that once throughout the entire movie, are really given nothing to do until a montage where they basically turn their house into a free clinic, or the climax, which actually starts 10 minutes before the end of the film, again, not counting the credits. And as cool as their fight scenes were, they're given like 10 to 30 seconds tops of clever material, making them kind of pointless throughout the majority of the film. Which is a shame. You got a great cast of people like Drew Carey, Amanda Bynes, Halle Berry, Harlan Williams, who all could have been really funny in this, but they're given next to no material to work with. Drew Carey, I give credit, is doing the exact opposite of his usual persona, but he's still a pretty generic cynic who shoots down everyone's plans until all of a sudden he wants to become brave. That's it. Game over. The game is not over. This is our chance to shine. Show what we're really made of. Rodney's right. I'm tired of... No, I'm not gonna do this. Okay, I want to try. Amanda Bynes gets a couple good lines, but... What did we talk about before? Do not talk to strangers. Talk to you. Who's stranger than that? Spends the majority of this just having a crush on Rodney and is kind of jealous of Cappy until the very end where she's not and moves on like it never even happened, mostly because nothing did happen. The one character, Diesel, I think is his name, who needs voice boxes in order to communicate, that could have been really funny if we didn't already have a silent, cutesy side character that does most of the heavy lifting already. And if you can find the original trailer on YouTube, you might actually see the most pivotal scene Cappy has in this, where she actually unleashes on the villain for all the womanizing that he inflicted on her and just how shitty a businessman he is. And honestly, it's such a funny scene, I don't get why it's not in the movie. That was an accident. I meant to do this! I don't think it's even on the deleted scenes of the DVD. I'm sure there are actual deleted scenes of her having chemistry with Rodney, because... did they even have a thing in this? I mean, when they escape from the Bigweld ball and you can hear them laughing in her car, obviously there was a conversation before that, but seriously, when Bigweld looks at her and goes, hey, your boyfriend's really something, and they're just sitting there going, oh, he's not, am I? Which is the exact same question the audience has. But even though Halle Berry has the least amount of screen time, she at least contributes something to the plot. Harlan Williams in this is so pointless that I'm not even kidding. And I didn't bother to look it up because I'm absolutely sure. I don't think any character in this ever says his name out loud. In fact, character introductions for these side characters in general are just non-existent. Robin Williams shows up for like 3 or 4 scenes, but they don't actually say his name Fender until a half hour in, and only 5 minutes later does he actually formally introduce himself to Rodney. Drew Carey's character Crank is just name-dropped halfway through by Rodney as if they somehow had an acquaintanceship, a connection, something. In fact, if you rewatch the movie like I did and pay super close attention to how conversations just change topic midway through or characters come in and out of it so infrequently. So, what are you guys doing today? We're doing it. What about you? Mr. Bigweld's disappeared and you're all just sitting there. It think that's already been established. It's clear as day almost every scene has 30 seconds worth of footage missing in order to save on time, but it takes away so much context about the side characters, their connections to one another, and just making everything feel incredibly rushed. Which is a shame. The villains make a huge impression with the little screen time they have, and honestly, have a clever evil plan that says a lot about healthcare systems. I know a lot of people online kind of compare the evil plan in this to gentrification, and I can kind of understand why, but the manipulation of upgraded medical technology and getting rid of spare parts that are cheaper but keep people alive longer, the healthcare analogy just makes more sense to me. I feel bad for Greg Kinnear because he's always cast as such a whiny douche and is stuck in movies that make him so insufferable because when he plays it right, like, he can really act. But at least in this, it's fun to hate just what a snobby douche he is, but he doesn't pale in comparison to Jim Broadbent as Madame Gasket, who is clearly having a ball. And I like that even though she's still the typical domineering evil mother, she still loves her son to an extreme amount, to the point where some of her best bits are just how much she tries to coddle him every single chance she gets. Don't stop him! Crush him! Destroy him! And by the way, I brought you a little something for your desk. Hell, Paul Giamatti in 3 scenes as the douchey security guard stands out just based on his voice work. You wouldn't know it was him because he's on a higher amount of helium than I am when I make my videos. I don't know how to explain it. It's that high-pitched evil laugh of his as he's such a dick to everyone that it's kind of infectious how much he loves his job. So in the end, the rush pacing, forgettable side characters doesn't make Robots as clever as I remembered, but the things that stood out the first time, like the animation, the world building, the mechanisms, the performances from Ewan McGregor, Robin Williams, Stanley Tucci, and the fact that they just threw every idea that you could with this concept in your face just makes Robots such a blast to watch. If you loved watching it as a kid, you'll still enjoy it as an adult, and if somehow you're my age and never saw this, what are you doing? Go check it out. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Robots. Be sure to like and subscribe, check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee, and I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.